Ladies and gentlemen, a conversation that I'm super excited to have. I'm joined today with Vin Chary. Did I do good?
Yes, you did.
Just so everyone knows, I just practiced it like 5 times, and then right when I was going to say it, I got nervous. So thanks for bearing with me. Vin Chary. Background, and I want to tee it up and introduce you a little bit, but I want everyone to know why I'm so excited to pick your brain and have this conversation. So everybody's probably familiar with the concept of a gym buddy, but I've seen Vin at the gym daily for years now. We kind of ended up with a similar routine, and especially in the winter when I can't run outside, I'm stuck there with you.
Right.
But anyway, when I started to realize that you were, one of my people, or a guy that I was excited to pick their brain on, then I would see you every single day at the gym with your arm in a sling, just still getting after it. And I watched for weeks and weeks and months. You probably know obviously way more than me about how long it was, but it felt like you were always in a sling.
Right.
And I started to kind of observe, and we started to, share some pleasantries and say hi and whatever. And you said something to me to the extent of that your superpower is consistency. And I was like, I like that guy. I got to chat with him. So then I started doing some research. We became friends on social media, and
right.
We kind of evolved into recovery buddies towards the end of my training block and things like that. But for everybody listening, Vin is a 2nd degree black belt in Krav Maga.
Yeah,
Krav Maga. Krav Maga, thank you. A brown belt in Jiu Jitsu. Mm-hmm. You're also, though, a father and a husband, and you have this incredible story. You say that you make people stronger, faster, and harder to kill, which I love.
Yeah.
But one of the things so the Chasing Greatness podcast is this idea of this pursuit of greatness. And it's kind of from a holistic perspective of how do we become the best versions of ourselves. And one of the things I like the most about people like you is where you've come from. And so many times, I just recently had Carrie Siggins, she's the CEO of Stone Age, on. And it was so fun to talk to her about, everybody thinks that, you've been a CEO forever. And
they think you just arrived there.
Yeah. And I think from the little bit I've seen, at least on social media from your story, there's definitely a journey that has occurred. And I would love to start there if you're up for it. You weren't always this Vin. And right. I would love to hear kind of, what the previous version of Vin was and what got us to where we are and kind of the trajectory and the transitions in your life. Because I think it's important for people to know that you can come from anywhere and become something great.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, first of all, I want to say thank you for inviting me on, for the opportunity. And I like the feeling is mutual. I saw you getting after it every day, and it's like you just have this intuitive sense when somebody's on the same wavelength. Yeah. It's just and we ended up just striking a conversation, and I consider you a friend now. There's so many people that come and go in the gym, and I focus on just executing, and I have my headphones in. I try not to talk to anybody, but certain people, I'm like, I like that guy.
At least do the fist bump or that. Yeah.
We're doing the same thing.
Exactly.
So I grew up in Buffalo, New York. So I'm first generation here. My parents actually immigrated here from India back in the 70s, and I'm the oldest of 3 boys. So I was born in 1978. I'm going to be 46 this year. And grew up in, an amazing, stable household. My parents were great. Their challenge was trying to navigate raising kids while they were growing up here as well. Mm. They essentially had to start over and learn the customs and just the way of life, and trying to impart some of their values on their kids while still growing up in something that was radically different than what they grew up in.
Are they still around?
Yeah, they're both still around.
Awesome.
So yeah, they actually they live in Florida. They live right on a golf course. They play golf every day. And then I call my mom. I'm like, hey mom, can you talk? She's like, I'll call you later. I'm playing mahjong with the girls. So I'm like,
living the dream.
Yeah, they're living the dream. They're super happy. So growing up, I was a voracious reader, and that's so my father is he's a retired oncologist. So his work ethic coming here And, like just his pursuit of knowledge, not just in his field, but in all fields, really was something that he imparted on us. And, like, so I was always, especially when I was young, like I was just kind of following his lead. I wanted to be like my dad.
How soon, obviously this is about you, so I don't want to hear too much, spend too much time on their story, but I do think it's fascinating, especially, because you're the son of immigrants and just the story, it matters. How soon after they immigrated did you come along? Were they here for years and years? Or?
So 3 years.
3 years.
Yeah.
So that's nothing.
No, it's nothing. Yeah. So like they were, my father was trying to get into, like he was getting into starting, like he actually got into a practice with somebody, and then, that whole thing.
Wow.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, growing up, I played sports. I was, I was great in academics, and it wasn't until I think my teenage years that things started to radically shift. So, I was a little bit overweight, and, being Indian in a not very diverse area or stratified area, I got picked on a little bit for that. And then obviously just being a little bit overweight just made me super self-conscious. And when I was 15, I discovered my other superpower of being able to outdrink everybody. So all of a sudden, I mean, I always had friends growing up, and through sports or just I made friends easily. But when I started drinking, for some reason, I have a hollow leg or something. I was all of a sudden elevated to this level. Like 15-year-old kid in high school. Like I was like the person that people wanted to hang out with. I'm like, yeah. All right, okay. And so it just kind of like it was this like just ascent of, this started becoming part of my identity, and it just continued and kept accelerating. And I went to college and a small liberal arts school in upstate New York, and even there, this was like my badge of honor. And things started to slip by the wayside, whether it was my academics or, just my own self-care. And so, when people are in college, you're supposed to be getting an education and learning. Like I just scraped by the edge of, the skin of my teeth. I got kicked out of college after my freshman year, got sent on a dean's vacation, and then had to, go to community college to like rebuild. And then I went back, and then got to the point where like I wasn't even going to classes or doing anything like that. And by my senior year, I had to take like extra classes each semester just to graduate on time. That was, magnanimous feat just to graduate on time. And so after college, I ended up moving to Manhattan. So I moved to New York City, kind of following all my friends that were going to do that. And, this was going to be my big opportunity to start building, my future. I graduated with a BA in anthropology. So my whole goal was I wanted to be a college professor, and I was just going to surf in the summertime when I had the time off and just be the cool professor that everybody hung out with. Totally unrealistic goals. And, so after, like, when I saw what it would entail to actually get into academia, I'm like, I don't think that's going to be my thing. So when I was in New York, I originally started working as a currency trader on Wall Street. And so I did that for a while. But I could never really excel in that or really anything that I was doing because I was auto night partying, perpetually hungover, and just understanding that like I didn't want to give that lifestyle up. Like I just tried to find little workarounds, and then I did other stuff in the city. Some stuff that isn't fully legal. Trying to make ends meet, as well as like I was a dog walker. I did all kinds of crazy stuff. Yeah, like just trying to make it work. And then when I was living in New York, 9/11 hit, and like that was it was just it was such a crazy surreal experience. But you would think that going through something like that, where like your mortality, like what's important in life, becomes so apparent, that I would have made a change, but I didn't. It actually just threw gasoline on the fire. So I kept going. I ended up having to leave New York because the girl that I was dating at the time, like she was like, you gotta, like she kicked me to the curb pretty much. And so I ended up going back to Buffalo, New York, and I I met up with some of my old buddies. At that point, I wanted to be a professional musician. So I'm a guitarist, and I was playing in bands in New York, and I actually was on an episode of The Real World because one of the girls from The Real World was like trying out for our band. That's a whole nother story.
Remind me.
Yeah. You don't want it from that time. Maybe the current iteration.
Yeah.
And so, I ended up going back to Buffalo, and then I started playing in a band with some buddies there, and great friends from long in the past. But I wasn't breaking the cycle. I ended up going and getting my MBA, so I was doing.
I forgot to mention your MBA.
That's okay.
I even had it written down.
No, that's okay.
Strategic management.
Strategic management, yeah. And the irony is I couldn't even manage myself, But I ended up going to night school, and I was working during the day as I was working for like a sound and lighting company, like doing sales for them. So I would do sales all day, and then I would go to school afterwards, and then I would be out all night either playing with the band or partying, and like worked at a bar for a while, like bartending, bouncing, just stuff that. So I don't even know how I slept for all those years, because it would be like because the bars in Buffalo are open until 4.
Oh, geez.
So that's like when everybody that is in the industry, they all close up, and at like 5 a.m. everybody meets up at a different bar, and that's when you start drinking.
Right.
It's like. So I don't even know how I managed. And then I would like get like an hour or two of sleep, and then just repeat the cycle over and over again.
What's interesting to me about that, or kind of stands out to me hearing the early day, Vin's story, is there are traits about you now that were clearly present back then, but I think presented themselves in different ways maybe.
Oh, yeah.
Like the fact that you are holding multiple jobs and these different hobbies, going back to school, getting your MBA, all of those things. What's your take on that? Because it just seems interesting to me that there's clearly this drive and this work ethic, and like things were going well, it seems like, at least for the most part, and you definitely were still getting after it. It just looked a little different.
But the thing is that I was just dipping my toes in the water in all these things.
Meaning what?
Meaning I was never allowing myself to like go all in. So I just I spread myself through all of these different things, hoping something would pan out. But I was never executing at 100% in any of them. Right. So I was pretty much half-assing everything, just enough to get by. And really it was just like to make my parents happy, to make like my friends that I grew up with, who were all, starting and becoming successful, like, who would constantly tell me that you have so much potential. And honestly, I can tell you that there's nothing worse than hearing you have so much potential. It was like I would go to bed hearing that in my head. Like, you have so much potential. All right, tomorrow's going to be the day. I'm going to get this under control. And it never happened. But so I was living in Buffalo. I ended up getting my MBA, and then my buddy was living out in California, and I'm like, I'm going to move to San Diego because I can surf, I can be, I've always wanted to be out there and live out there. I'd never even been to California. I think I'd visited with my family, but not like, it was just like some pie in the sky thing. And so I moved out there, and I thought that this would be my chance to start fresh. And I ended up falling in with an even worse crowd. And that's where things accelerated to not just, and it had been for a while, but it was alcohol, and then other things started coming in, and I was just doing all the same stuff. So I lived in San Diego for a couple of years, and I ended up falling down a flight of stairs, like concrete steps I lived on the second floor. It was like 15, 20 concrete steps, and they found me passed out in the morning. Wow. And so they ended up rushing me to the hospital, and I woke up in the hospital to the doctor saying, like, you're almost on the brink of liver failure. Like, if you continue like this, we don't know when it'll happen, but you're going to die. And so that was like a real wake-up call for me. And I ended up, I talked to my family. And so like my family and my friends and my brothers, they all were begging me to come home back to Buffalo. Like, you need to leave there, and you need to come home, and you need to go to rehab. And even then, I was like, okay, well, I'll go to rehab. Like, this is me bargaining with myself. Yeah. I'll go to rehab. And when I get out, I'll be able to do it, but I'll be able to moderate this. And so even on the flight back to Buffalo, I missed 2 flights because I was drinking in airport bars. I was so drunk for one of the flights that they wouldn't even let me on the flight. And so I got back, and I was supposed to check into rehab. My parents picked me up at like 11 o'clock at night. Supposed to go to rehab the next morning. I broke into my dad's liquor cabinet and drank a whole bottle of Glenlivet. And so they found me, I was passed out in my closet. And so rehab wouldn't even take me. They had to take me to detox. For a week. Yeah, because I wasn't fit to be in rehab. And so after that week of detox, I go to rehab. And the whole time, that first day, I'm looking around at all these people. I'm I'm not like these people. These people have real problems. And
I just drink.
Yeah. Totally judging people. And so I was very resistant.
Was there, just to make sure for context, there's the rehab center. There's a lot more of heavy drugs and other things.
It was everything. Yeah. So it was 28-day inpatient.
Okay.
So yeah, it was the whole gambit of
and the community that's there with you has a plethora. Everybody from all walks of life and all sorts of struggles and
exactly. Okay. And so the first day or two, I was just completely resistant. I'm just going to get through this. And it wasn't until I think it was the third day that one of the counselors, I was just kind of in one ear out the other. And one of the counselors said, "You are the cause and the solution to all of your problems." Mm-hmm. And for some reason, the neural pathways in my brain just opened up. And that, I hear that every single day.
The cause and the solution
to all of your problems. And so, and he was like, "So what are you going to be? It's your choice." And I was like, all of these years, I've been searching for something to get me out of this. Because it's not that I didn't want to be successful. I didn't want to live a healthy life. Well,
clearly.
It was, I loved life, but I just needed that little wake-up call. And the next morning, I woke up. I was getting up 2 hours before everybody else, and they had just a little kind of total gym kind of thing. So I was using that, and I was doing push-ups, and
were you exercising before that?
So I had exercised on and off for years. So I started boxing back in 98. I started boxing in college. But again, it was something that I loved, but I could never really stick with it.
Right.
I was I'd show up for a week, and then I wouldn't show up for a month, and then that kind of thing. So I had and I loved the way that it made me feel. But yeah, they had a jump rope at the rehab center, and I just heard the Rocky soundtrack in my head. I was just jumping rope and doing push-ups and just push-ups, sit-ups, and using the little it was the worst piece of machinery I've ever seen in my life, but I made it work.
Right.
And so when I just completely made a 180 in my mind of what I was going to do with myself, and I started that I need to start fixing myself first, and then I can see what happens outside of here. But it wasn't I was projecting into the future anymore. I'll do this later, or I'm doing this for something. I was doing this for myself, and it was the first time in a long time that I was completely present in improving myself in a long time.
When you look back, why did you go in the first place? Because it seems like there was that, I'll call it a turning point, or that pivotal moment. Call it a week in, or 5 days in, you're I forget the words now, but you're responsible for all your problems and the solutions. But you showed up, you went. Any idea when you're looking back as to why, when you were in a different mindset and a different, you had to fly across the country to even show up? Why do you think you showed up in the first place?
To make my parents happy.
For others.
Okay. I wasn't doing it for myself. I was, the people that loved me were begging me to. And so in my mind, I was doing it just to assuage them, right? Just to appease them in the short term so that I could go back to doing what I was doing before that.
So do you feel like that was the fundamental switch, is that it went from doing it for others to doing it for you? 100%. That's the foundation of that change?
Yeah, that's where the complete path of my life changed. And so when I I got through, and I was an A+ rehab student, my goal was I was sharing my story, and hearing other people and trying to help them too. And I've always been a helpful person. I'm an empath by nature. So I want everybody to be happy. And that probably was part of why I got into partying so much, is because I just wanted everybody to have a good time, everybody to be happy. But so when I got out of rehab, probably halfway through, I started making a list of all the things that I said I was going to do, but I never did. And so I made it a goal in my life that there was not one thing that I was ever going to say I was going to do that I would never do.
Ooh.
Yeah. So I made a list, and at the top of the list was train in Krav Maga. And so I put that at the top of the list, and then there were a number of other things like make my parents proud, find a new career path, have a family one day, all these things. So when I got out of rehab, there was a Krav Maga school in Buffalo, New York, and I had never trained in Krav Maga. And I had my mom drop me off there the day after they picked me up from rehab. And they had no idea what it was. I was like, just take me over there. I'll take the first class. And so the first class I go in, and I was just blown away. I was like, this is the coolest thing I've ever seen. And you were saying something before about some of these traits were there before. I have an addictive personality. I know that. When I focus on something, I'm going to do that until the wheels fall off. And so I started training. I was going to the morning classes, the afternoon classes, the evening classes, and in the evening I would be there for 3 hours. So I was there every day, to the point where even when there weren't classes, I asked if I could just come hit the heavy bag. Yeah, it was just over and over and over again. And so when I got out, and I ended up getting a job with Merrill Lynch. So I was a financial advisor at the time, and this was in 2008. So a month or two after I started this new job, I'm like, okay, I can really progress in this. I could use my MBA. That's when the market crashed in 2008. Course. And so I got laid off. And so, it was.
And how long, just timeline wise, we go from rehab to, love, by the way, the list of, I'm never going to say I'm going to do something and not do it ever again. I love that. I resonate with that so much. To starting to train, getting your job at Merrill Lynch, and then getting laid off. From leaving the rehab facility to getting laid off, is this months? Is this years?
It was about 5 months.
Okay,
yeah, so that's 5 months. So pretty
fresh.
Pretty fresh, and it was just another setback.
Yeah,
but I was armed with this undying passion to pursue what I said I was going to pursue. And so, I was super bummed out, and I had just gone to visit my best friend who was living in New Orleans. And so I'd gone on New Orleans every year for Jazz Fest, and being an aspiring musician, that was when I first went there, I was like, this is the greatest place on the planet.
I've been there once. Yeah. And a quick anecdote, just because it's a funny story. Yeah. We went to New Orleans once, and I made the mistake of renting a car. And my wife was in a wedding, and I was not. So I was the driver the whole time, and anyway, the whole thing. And I actually drove across Bourbon Street at 3 a.m. There was a cross street so anyway, I will never drive in New Orleans ever again.
Yeah, it's especially in the French Quarter. It can be brutal.
It was stressful. Never again. But anyway.
So I had gone. My best friend from college was living down there, and so I had gone to visit him for Halloween that year. And then shortly, and while I was down there, I was like, this is amazing. I'd love to live down here someday. And then when I got laid off, my buddy used to call me occasionally and be like, hey, when are you moving down here? Just to mess with me. And it just so happened that when that happened, he called me shortly after I got laid off. He's like, when are you going to move down here? I was like, I'll be there in 2 weeks. He was like, what?
And you just went for it?
I just packed up a couple suitcases, and he was living in the French Quarter. And so, going back a little bit, I'm 6 months sober, and I decide I'm going to move to New Orleans. And everybody is like, that is the worst idea.
After getting laid off.
After getting laid off, they're like, that is the worst possible place that you can go and try to continue this journey of sobriety. And, I was going to AA meetings, doing all that, and everybody's like, that is the dumbest thing I've ever heard. What are you thinking? But I knew it. Go ahead. Say something.
I think you're going to answer it. I was like, what your mindset of did you think it was risky?
I am a big risk, big reward kind of person. And my mindset was, if I'm going to do this, I need to do this in the belly of the beast. I want the hardest freaking challenge possible to be able to do this.
Because if I can be sober in New Orleans, French district,
I can do it anywhere.
Unemployed after layoff, I can be sober anywhere. I love that.
So my buddy, thank you. My buddy was living in the French Quarter, it was Bourbon Street, and then he was on a little side street. So I was like from here to the wall to Bourbon Street.
Yeah.
And when I moved down there, it was Mardi Gras. So I get down there, like full blown Mardi Gras, where like the streets are packed. And so I take a cab from the airport, and I get out with my 2 suitcases. And as I get out of the car, this girl comes like hurtling towards me and projectile vomits, and I like matrixed my way out of it. And like I can still remember, like it seemed like it was like
down.
5 minutes that the vomit was going by my face, and in that time, everything in my life flashed before me. I'm like, what did I just do?
And here I am.
Here I am. So, you know, I ended up when I got down there was a Krav Maga school that was currently open there. It had just opened, and so like I was like, all right, I'm going to get back to like the staples, the things that I know they're going to keep me grounded. So I started training, and I found a job in finance down there, like working at a little boutique, you know, financial services firm. But I started training, and the guy that owned the gym shortly thereafter asked me, you know, because he's like, you're excelling really quickly. You want to become an instructor? I was like, yes, absolutely. Like, I want to share this with other people. And so I went and did my first instructor course, and it just was like the most transformational experience. It was a 7-day course, like 8 hours a day of just a beatdown, right? But like, I loved every single second of it. And so when I came back, I was like, you know what? I don't want to be in finance anymore. Like, I finally found my calling.
I was just going to say that.
You know,
Found your calling.
We're all always searching for it, but it just was like the grandest epiphany ever. I'm like, I want to do this where I can, because this transformed my life. I want to share that with as many people as possible. And so I asked the guy who owned the gym if he wanted a partner. And so we ended up, you know, I ended up buying into the business as a minority partner, which I'll never do again.
Whole podcast on that.
Yes, exactly. Well, you know, so I don't want to get into it too much, but I ended up like completely like revamping the business. But every time I would build it up, he would do something. He was not a good person. He ended up in 2013 going to jail.
Oh, geez.
Yeah, for like the worst possible thing that you could ever do. You know, as a father, you probably know what that is.
Right.
And so it was like the business almost tanked from that. It's like you're a self-defense school, and the main person in charge is actually, you know, the person that you should be looking out for.
Yeah.
So I ended up like having to go through like a year-long legal battle to try to get out of that, or like, you know, start my own thing or whatever. And it was just, it could have crushed me. And, you know, I'm not going to lie, many times like that little voice in my head started saying, well, there's a way to this, you know, to dull the pain.
Mm-hmm.
But by that time, I had met my wife, and we had just had our son. So I'm going through all this with a newborn at home.
Right.
Like, all this stress, and like not just...
And just even having a newborn at home is stressful.
Exactly. But like now it's compounded by this whole thing. And so...
Were you feeling, just curious from the father perspective, because I can relate to, you know, you're fighting these battles. You know, there's these urges to maybe suppress some of the stress or whatever it might be. There's also, you know, the protector, the provider hat that was on too. The business has to work for the you know, for you to support your family.
Right.
I mean, all of these things, I'm just kind of curious, what did that moment feel like as a father? Like as a husband and a father, what are you thinking at that stage? What's going on in your mind?
It was such an amalgam of emotions, but it was like, it was terror. It was pride that I'm a father now, but it was like with so many things in flux, it was like, what am I going to do here?
Do you think it helped you stay the course? Do you think it was neutral? Do you just curious if it, you know, if it influenced that at all? You know, there was a sense of responsibility at all, or
100%. Yeah. I mean, I am now in charge of ensuring that this little being gets to live a fulfilled life.
Yeah.
And I am 100% in charge of taking care of this baby. So yeah, I mean, that was a huge source
pretty
of
heavy
grounding
responsibility.
for me. Yeah. So, and I also like to deal with that, I just trained harder. That's it. I just like whatever I was doing, I went harder, like in everything. And so what actually happened is I was getting ready to test for my Krav Maga black belt, which is like a knockdown, drag out, 8-hour test where essentially for the last 2 hours of the test, after performing all the techniques under high stress, like just going like, think about like a marathon, Like, you know what I mean? Like, you're just going for this amount of time.
Right.
The last 2 hours, you're just full on fighting multiple attackers.
Oh, geez.
Like, and they bring in like professional fighters to fight you, and like, so.
And it's full contact?
Full contact. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. I mean, you're wearing gloves and shin guards. And like,
but you're fighting.
Yeah, but you're fighting.
Yeah.
And so that's just like a rite of passage at the end. Like, they just want to see if you're going to survive, you know, because they don't give away black belts like that. So
they don't just hand those things out?
So the week before my black belt test, meanwhile, I'm going through this highly stressful legal battle. All this stuff's going on. I'm sparring with one of my buddies, and I throw a left hook, and I feel a pop. Tore my bicep a week before the test.
Wow.
And so, like, it was, like, just all black and blue, like, bicep hanging down. And I, you know, talked to my cousin who's an orthopedic. He's like, you got to go get that fixed right now. I'm like, okay, yeah, I will.
Next week.
So I went and took the test. I just put KT tape all over my arm. And my instructors were like, what's up with your arm? I was like, oh, it's just helping, you know, like keep things, you know, just wear and tear. And so it's 3 days leading up to the test where you're training 8 hours a day, just reviewing everything. And then the test is on the 4th day. So but my wife's the only one who knows what's going on with me. And so I'm taking the test, and like throughout the test, like anytime I threw a punch, I just felt it ripping a little more. And, you know, by the end, when we got to the sparring portion, I couldn't even use this arm. And she's crying in the corner with my son who's there. Like, he's just, you know, like just about a year old at this point. And so, like, I made it through the test it was one of the most proud moments of my life.
I bet.
You know, because like I knew that like if I would have given up then, who knows where my life would have gone. I was like, you know what? I'm going to find a way. I'm going to will myself through this. And I did. And, you know, after the test, I flew home, and actually right before, it was the morning of the test. I'm sorry. I got a call from my attorneys like, hey, the business is yours. It's all done.
So
So I
win.
that happened. And then I went into the test. I'm like, I'm going to murder people with one arm. If I have to, I'll rip this thing off and beat people with the bloody stump.
Right.
Like, I don't care.
Making this happen.
Yeah. One thing's done, move on to the next. And so I flew home, and then like 2 days later I had the surgery. And it was actually a blessing in disguise that I had the surgery, because it slowed me down a little bit, and I could focus on rebranding, rebuilding the business as my own.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we changed the name, like did some renovations, and just like changed the face of the business.
Have you ever, you know, and I don't know, there are moments definitely in my life where pushing through, or, you know, I don't know, there's a few times in my life where I can look back and say, oh my gosh, I'm so glad I made that decision, because that changed the trajectory. Like, you know, there's one, for example, I battle anxiety, and I battle it fiercely. And before my first marathon in 2019, I was having full-blown anxiety about it, like full-blown true anxiety about it.
Right.
To the point that I almost didn't go. And I remember telling myself, I'm going to go no matter how I feel. I'm going to just go. Like, forget the anxiety. I'm going to show up. My dad woke up with me to make sure that I would go, because it was one of those I had to drive and like get on the bus at 2 a.m. and, you know, whatever.
Right.
But I think about that moment often of, had I not gone, and I could have not gone. I had a lot of excuses. I was battling an injury at the time, and, you know, whatever. There's all these things I totally could have justified it, and the world wouldn't have known.
Sure.
But I went, and I showed up, I got on the bus, and I went and I did the dang thing. And now, you know, last month I ran a 100-miler, and, you know, I've run, anyway, that's an example of one of those where I can look back and be like, I am so glad that I fought through, made the decision I made, because it was a trajectory changing moment.
Right.
Like, my life would have looked differently, I know for a fact, had I not gotten on the bus, you know, and started the marathon. So I'm curious if fighting, you know, just when you look back, this is a big day, you know, these big few days with the business and getting your black belt and fighting through the injury and things like that. Meanwhile, you could have waited. You were hurt.
Yeah.
Right? I'm kind of curious, one, why? What was your mindset going into it? Why didn't you wait? Why did you say, I'm doing it? But secondly, now that you've got the benefit of hindsight and you get to look back, how did that change the trajectory of your life? How did that change, you know, the momentum and how things went by fighting through that?
Yeah, no, thank you. That's a great question. So first, the reason why I still went was because I had put in so much work to get to that point. And honestly, like, there's been so much turmoil and stress that year that I'm like, I honestly want to go do this because it'll be a stress relief for me. Like, I just need to go do this. And also because I don't ever say I'm going to do things and I don't do them. So I was like, you know what? I don't care. I'm just going to go do it, and I'm going to give it my best. And then, you know, after that, when that happened, and then, you know, the business becoming mine, I was like, I can do anything. Like, there's not a thing that can stop me from achieving what I want to. Right? I'm the cause and the solution to all of my problems.
I'm the cause and the solution to all of my problems.
Right.
I'm going to remember that.
Yeah. It's
what a
so
powerful
great.
sentence.
It really is. It's not mine, but, you know, it's and I think it's somebody probably said it. It's like, I just think of the Michael Scott thing. Like,
yeah.
Wayne Gretzky,
Michael Scott. When I post this episode, I'll give you credit and then me credit, and then, you know, we'll just keep it cascading down. There's also something about that. Winston Churchill, I think it's, you know, misaccredited quotes all the time because they just end up tracing it back to him. It's usually like the second person that says the quote that gets the credit for it. So, you know, now I'm third in line for it. But
hey, that's all right. Use it.
But well, it's so powerful. It's so concisely powerful. You know,
simple.
Yeah. So anyway, I love it. And this idea, I'm relating so much to so many of the things you're saying, but that feeling that you can do anything is such a powerful feeling. And I think it's especially powerful because it's true, because we can do anything.
This is very true.
And it's like, you have to prove yourself right sometimes. I mean, I felt like that. So, you know, I went into my 100-miler injured, and I knew I was injured.
Yeah.
And it's like, I'm going though anyway, because I've put in all the work. I've signed up. I'm not going to say I'm going to do something and not do it. All these things that I'm relating to. And now I have this whole new perception of the world and life. It's probably it's like, if I can do that, we have on video of me at mile 12 telling my wife that we're going to fight the leg all day, 88 miles before the finish line.
Insane.
And, you know, so it's just such an empowering, doing things in life that let you know that you can do anything is, I think, so valuable. So what I want to hear from you, because and this is again why I love your story, is because there's people listening that know that that's in them. There's people that know they're meant for something more, or they're, you know, half-assing these many things, like, you know, that relate to your story at the different chapters. What would be your advice for, you know, because you went from rehab to knowing that you could do anything, and a business owner and a black belt and a father and, you know, all of these things. What would you tell them? Or what did you tell yourself? How did you, because that's a huge gap to close. That's a huge gap to cross, and you successfully crossed it, which is remarkable. I want to know the mindset, why, how, and what advice would you give to people that are in similar, you know, that need to cross their own gap?
You know, I'm a huge believer that you can always start over. You know, like the human story, the human journey is just a series of chapters. You can always just close that chapter and start writing a new one. Any time, any day, doesn't matter.
I love that.
You know, it's all about you drawing a line in the sand and saying, I'm going to do this. You know, I'm going to do this because I deserve it. You know, you need to do this for yourself first and foremost, never for others, right? And a lot of things that I've done in my successes is, you know, with the family, doing it for them, wanting to make my family proud. But at the nucleus of that is me wanting to make myself proud.
Yeah.
You know, because that's the most powerful feeling in the world, right?
It's infectious.
It really is, yeah.
Like, you can tell, even, you know, it's like, you know, we said there's kind of the vibes at the gym. You can tell, like, there's somebody who's becoming the best version of themselves, who's making themselves proud. And then I think, you know, I think you probably have to make yourself proud in order to really make others proud too, probably.
Right. Yeah, no, absolutely. Because if you're not at one with yourself and you are not complete on the inside, then you are showing up subpar for others, right? And it's just, you know, it's a facade, right? So you have to do it for yourself. But, you know, there's always a trap door. It can always get worse, right? Like whatever your situation is, And, there's varying things that people struggle with. But look at some of the most, just tenacious people in history. They just keep going, right? And they overcome, because if you really want it bad enough, and if it's not just something that you're talking about, right? That you really want in life. If you go all in on that, give 100% of your effort to it, you will succeed. That's it. And even if there's like that little inkling, like I'm not going to do it, punch that MFer in the face and you do it. Right?
Yeah, I'm trying to think if there's anything in my life or anybody I know of even that's truly given something their all and failed. Nothing that I can recall.
No, I don't. I don't either. Yeah, that's it. If you give your all to it, and a caveat to that is it may not be the level of success or accomplishment or achievement that you thought it was going to be, but that doesn't matter. What matters is that you gave it your all, and think about all the different possibilities that open up just by doing that.
Yeah.
Right? Maybe what you thought you wanted wasn't exactly what you wanted, but something better came along.
You learned,
right?
Where did that idea of being able to, because I love the way you've kind of reframed life, but an identity even of giving people the permission to end a chapter. I think that's a powerful way to think it through, of like, because sometimes change is scary, and we identify as these certain things, or this is what I do, or I do, I drink, or I do this, or
right.
Obesity runs in my family, or whatever.
Right.
Thinking about the path of life in chapters is sort of an empowering way to think about it, because I love that idea that you can end a chapter and start another one. Mm-hmm. How cool is that? It's like multiple versions of your story can evolve. And where did that come from? Did you think that up yourself?
I really just said it just now.
Just now?
Yeah,
no way.
Yeah. I mean, but it is like, and again, like there are other tremendous, magnificent humans who probably, think the same way, right? But that's just like, because I have been at the bottom, I don't ever think that a situation is permanent. It is like everything in life is malleable. Mm-hmm. Right? And if you choose to channel that in the direction that you want to, there's nothing but success coming your way.
When you look back, obviously and even if they were, what's the word for it? Self-inhibited, self-inflicted adversities, with substance or alcohol or, careers that weren't fulfilling or whatever it might be. What's your primary emotion when you look back and you think about those parts of your life, those things?
I look back at those moments fondly because it made me who I am today. And so I don't regret anything in life, but especially those trials and tribulations that I went to, that's what forged me into who I am today. Like the term warrior gets thrown around a lot, but like I feel like I'm always going, and when I wake up in the morning, I'm going to war today.
Yeah.
And I'm going to fight, and I'm fighting for myself.
Right.
So, I think that's, that's just like at the core of my identity now. And, obviously martial arts have played a huge role in that, because once you realize what you're capable of through martial arts, like, I'm the most kind, peaceful person. But I love knowing that I am capable of exacting great violence.
Right.
Just honestly, it makes everything else in life so much easier. Like, I don't get into road rage issues. Like, I'm not going out there to start fights. I'm not doing that. I'll always try to like calm people down, and like, it's just you just have a different subjectivity, the way you view the world.
Which I think, and I'm curious your thoughts on that, but one of the things I've found in my journey, as I've gotten a better version of myself, there are these things that just don't bother me. And almost even on a societal level, it's like, I'll tell my wife sometimes, I'm like, they need something better to do. If they're worried about that, like I'm trying to run 100 miles or raise my family or build my business or, whatever it is. Like I've got these my energy is going towards other things. I don't have the energy for that, the drama or the,
Negativity.
the thing, whatever it is. Mm-hmm. I'm curious if it's because it seems like you have a similar, almost like stoicism of like, that's not going to bother me because I know I'm capable of dealing with real problems. Exactly. Like there's this other level now of things that are worthy of your attention and your energy. Does that contribute to overall a satisfying life, to happiness, to fulfillment? Like knowing, I don't know, I'm just kind of curious because sometimes I think we stress about the wrong things. We give energy to the wrong things. And I'm just kind of curious from your perspective, if that level at which, is worthy of your energy, how that translates to the rest of your life, because there's energy that's been conserved, or just kind of how that changes your day to day.
Yeah. I feel like I have a force field around me and I'm impervious to other people's energy.
I love that.
And I can feel it, but it doesn't mess with my ecosystem. And so like, I am just fully focused on the things that I love to do and the things that I know are going to make me proud for the day and the people that I love. Anybody else, it's like I'll go out of my way to help people if it's the kind of person that would reciprocate. But I have no tolerance for negativity, drama, like that stuff. I don't have time for that. I got shit to do.
Yeah.
I'm moving forward.
I got dreams to chase.
Yeah, I'm not moving forward. So like I'm not going to let you hang on and weigh me down. Like I don't need an anchor on me.
Yeah, no, I love that because I relate to that, and it's so like to me, I feel like it helps me conserve my energy.
You got to save you got to protect your space, your bandwidth.
I've got it for my family and myself and my business and whatever it might be. But I'm curious. Well, actually, before I ask that, how did you end up in Durango with all of this? And when did you get here?
So when I ended up building the business back after it blew up, right? And I put everything into it. So we ended up opening a second location in 2017, this big, massive second location. And, it was definitely an ego move, because our first location was kind of like in the middle of nowhere. The second location was at like the biggest intersection in New Orleans, like right next to the new Trader Joe's that was going up. And I, by some, fortune, I ended up being able to get into that spot. So built this super fancy, beautiful location, and I, tried to make it work for a couple of years, but it just wasn't sustainable. So we ended up having to close that in 2019, and that almost took the business under. And, I was a victim of my own ambition at that time. Like I just went too big, and when that happened, towards the end of 2019, I was like, all right, we're going to go back and just focus on the original location, rebuild, and, take this back to where it was before and just focus on the one location. Well, a few months after that happened, that's when COVID hit. And of course, liquor stores are open, but they're closing gyms.
Of course.
So, because that makes sense. And I was just like, I could not believe that happened. And so I tried to keep things going in that, March, April, May, going into June, trying to keep things going. But everybody was in self-preservation mode, right? So, I hope that people would continue to support us. Our bills didn't stop, right? But everybody else was looking out for themselves, and I totally get that. But I couldn't keep the place open anymore. So I ended up having to close in the beginning of June 2020, close for good. I had to declare bankruptcy, and it was the most humiliating, debilitating experience, right? Because this was my love, my passion. I built it up so much, and then now all of a sudden I'm like, what am I going to do?
Yeah.
What am I going to do? I have to take care of my family. What is the next chapter?
I want to hear about, the progression from that, but I'm curious, how did that feel?
It felt terrible. For the first time since I had gotten sober, so this was 2020, 12 years since I got sober in 2008, I didn't want to get out of bed. And so I was just
Were you feeling depression, anger, confusion? Because I just can't imagine losing a business from outside circumstances.
It was all of those things, and obviously some of it was my own doing.
Sure.
That other location failing, so and I own that. I assumed full responsibility for that. But then to get hamstringed and have that taken away from you, Yeah, there was some anger there, but it was mostly just like sadness, and I felt a great sense of loss, because I was like, the whole time I'm like, well, what are all the law enforcement officers that I train going to do? What are the domestic violence victims going to do? What are all these people going to do? And it, like, while I was saying all this to my wife, she grabbed me and shook me, and she goes, what are we going to do? And I was like, oh,
you have a good wife,
man. Like, I hadn't even been thinking about that, and it was like such a wake-up call. So we ended up doing, we ended up closing, and like, to declare bankruptcy was like crippling. I can't even put that into words, the amount of just failure that I felt, right? Failure as a business owner, but failure as a father and husband. Like, what am I going to do to take care of my family? So we had come back from Utah that December. So 3 months before COVID hit, we drove out to Utah, my wife's Subaru, went out there for 2 weeks.
Just on vacation?
Just on vacation.
Yeah, cool.
We left Christmas night, drove out there, wanted to take my son out there, and my dog was a puppy at the time. And so we went out there, and on the way back, I was like, man, how awesome would it be to live out west? Like, it would be great. And she was like, yeah, she's like, maybe someday when we retire, we'll move out here, but we got to get back. And so, fast forward a couple months, COVID hits. And I'm like trying to figure out what to do, and I just look at my wife, like, because right before that, my son came in. I was just laying in bed, and he's like, "Dad, what are you doing?" Because he was so used to just seeing me act and do stuff all the time, and I was like, "What am I doing? Like, what is this? Like, I need to figure something out." So that night, I'm laying in bed, and I look at my wife. I was like, "Hey, want to sell everything we own and get an RV and travel?" And, she's born and raised in New Orleans. Like, people from New Orleans, like, her family's there. And
you don't leave New Orleans.
Don't leave New
I
Orleans.
have friends in New Orleans.
Yeah.
It's
an amazing place. And she was like, let's do it. And I was like, what? Okay. So we ended up doing research. I'd never driven a truck before. I'd never towed anything before. And, we're like, well, let's find a way to make this work. And, we ended up financing a truck and then borrowed a little bit of money from my family to, to get an RV. And, we had like a couple like garage sales where people were just coming in and buying all of our stuff. And we had no plan. It was just, we're going to go travel and we're going to find a place to start a new life.
Wow.
And so, luckily I had built, so now I do one-on-one coaching.
Yeah. And all the virtual stuff.
All the virtual stuff. And luckily 2 years before the business closed, I had started it as just a side project. Because, in all my years of doing this, I had friends and
move away and
all over the world who would always say, "Oh, I wish you were here. I would love to work with you." So I started it, and so I built out all the infrastructure for it. So I looked at my wife. I was like, "Let's just go all in on this, my virtual business, and let's hit the road and see what happens." We probably had enough money to last us a month.
That's it.
And so I just I had that same fire where I'm like, I'm going to rebuild. I just love something about rebuilding. You know what I mean? It's because I feel like it's me against the world, and nobody's going to take that from me. So, the business just ended up taking off, and, it's still thriving today. But we ended up traveling the country for 3 years in the RV.
Wow.
Yeah. So we traveled for 3 years. We went to all 48 states. We made a list of all the places where we could potentially think of living, and we literally lived there in our RV.
And then kind of test it out. And
yeah. And my big thing, while I was traveling, I didn't miss a single day of working out. I had kettlebells in the back of my truck where I would find a local gym, and I was doing stuff in national parks, and but it was the best time in my life.
I can't even imagine.
Because I got to watch my little boy grow up.
Yeah.
And spend time with my wife, free from just the grind of going to work before he woke up, coming home after he went to sleep, and missing those very pivotal years in his life. I wanted to be there for that. And so just being able to spend time with them was and just do this epic stuff. Every day was an adventure, being in a different place.
Well, yeah.
Yeah. And so while we were driving around, we're all right, we came through Durango, I think, 4 years ago. And we're man, this place, there's something magical about it. And so it went on the list, and it was at the top of the list. And then we kind of had a rotating list of 5 different places, but Durango always seemed to stay at the top of the list. So when we would go back home to see my wife's family in New Orleans or go to see my family in Florida, and we were coming back from the west, we would end up stopping in Durango. We're this place is awesome.
Something about it.
And so after we did all the lower 48, we were on our way back from New Orleans. We were going to go up to Alaska. And so this was last May. So we just actually hit a year of living here.
No way.
Yeah. So we were just going to stop in Durango May 1st of last year and just be here for 2 weeks, try to find a place to live after we got back from Alaska. We were going to go spend the whole summer up there. And then, I don't know, we were going to build a raft and sail to Hawaii. Who knows? We were going to do something epic. We're like, we can't just fly there. What can we do?
Right.
So we pull into the RV park here in Durango on May 1st of last year, pull into the spot. We're all excited to be here. And the leveling system on our RV goes out. So we can't even get it off the truck. We have to call an emergency RV tech. He comes, he gets it off, and puts it on blocks. He's like, you're going to be here for a couple of weeks while I get parts. And so, like, after a couple of days, I just looked at my wife. I was like, we were planning on staying here anyways. Like, I think the universe is telling us something. We had 3 years of, pulling this fifth wheel all over the country and had minor issues. Like, imagine if we tried to go up to Alaska, breaks down on us, like, at some point, and we're screwed.
Right.
So we ended up, looking for a place then. And we had mixed emotions about it because we're like, we just love that freedom.
The traveling.
The best thing about that is like, if your neighbors suck, you just go go somewhere else. Right? If the place you're in is, and I can't even remember a place that we didn't enjoy. We always found something to do. Right. It was just like, we loved.
And you were with your family.
I was with my family, right? But we loved meeting new people. There was something beautiful about every state.
Yeah.
But we ended up like living in the RV park for like a month and a half while we looked for a place, and we ended up finding this awesome spot in Hermosa that we're renting, and like it worked out.
How cool!
Yeah. So like,
what was number two? If it weren't Durango, where was it going to be?
Probably going to be like the Oregon coast.
Yeah.
And we loved Montana as well, but after growing up in Buffalo, which is like some of the worst winters, and then living in New Orleans where the summertime is like the center of the earth.
Right.
Like, and then the humidity, I'm like, I need something a little bit more temperate.
Yeah. Welcome to Durango.
Welcome to Durango. Exactly. So, and it was just, even not, obviously it's one of the most beautiful places. There's tons of stuff to do. But it was also the people too, like anybody that I talked to, and, like I made it a point to kind of like just get my sense of what the people were like. And like, I just loved the people here. I've met some amazing people and I have some very good friends now. But, it was just like, it was serendipitous. It was meant to be.
Yeah.
So we actually just hit a year of being here. And, after the main reason I wanted to stay here for a year and make our decision if we were going to be here full time is because my wife and son are from Louisiana. And I didn't know what winters were like here. Winter is like Mordor. It's like, Lord of the Rings. When I grew up, I was like, I don't know if you guys are going to like this. I don't know if I'm going to like it.
Right.
And we had the best time this winter. Like the sun and just, because a couple people before winter came around were like, winter is my favorite season. I'm like, you are crazy.
Yeah.
What is wrong with you? Like winter? And we loved it. We had so much fun. And so, now we plan to never leave. And, my wife, she's very stoic and she's just like, she's all business all the time. But she said, I've never been happier living anywhere else than here.
Oh,
when she said that, I was like, oh, my heart just melted.
Yeah.
Yeah. And my son said, he says the same thing too.
What are you going to do though if things get too, you don't have a battle to fight, you don't have a thing to rebuild?
I always have challenges. So now, like, I'm training for my Jiu Jitsu black belt. So I was I've been a brown belt since 2019, and if I would have stayed in New Orleans, my black belt path would have been a lot faster. But when we hit the road, actually, I was going to train jiu-jitsu in every state as I was moving towards my black belt, but it was COVID, and so like the first few states, every gym that I called, they're like, "Yeah, we don't want the random guy, traveling in an RV,
literally traveling the country to
come
in
into our closed gym."
And,
like meanwhile, everybody. And I got it, I understood, and then after a little while, I was like, you know what? I'm just going to enjoy the time with my family. I can always get back to it. So I started training here. And let me tell you about a humbling experience. So I train at Durango Martial Arts here. Great people. I started after, being a brown belt, coming to a new school, the new guy there, and having to adjust to altitude. That was a wake-up call. I got my butt handed to me. Yeah. Like every single day, just getting crushed. And
there's something about Durango athletes, like I see it in the ultra running space, and you probably are experiencing something similar in the jiu-jitsu space. There's like this humble excellence. Mm-hmm. It's hard to explain it. Like, I don't know. They don't talk much, like nobody's saying how great they are. It's all kind of like inviting and then you go out with them and you're like, oh, whoa, they're excellent.
They're beasts.
There's just something, just anyway, it's similar.
Yeah. And actually that was like one of the big criteria for a place we wanted to live. I wanted to be around other people chasing greatness,
right?
Other people just getting after it. And, so I started training at the school, and, it's an awesome jiu-jitsu school, like great people. And it's really cool when you train martial arts because you have a plug and play group of friends.
Yeah.
It's like when you get on the mats and you just try to kill each other, and obviously it's controlled, but
that's where the best bonds are made, I'm sure.
That's because there's no room for BS.
Yeah.
There's nobody is nobody is fronting. Nobody is
you can't. There is no room for fakeness.
No, there isn't. And for me, training martial arts, that's the one time when you can just be nothing else matters except in that moment you're dealing with that. There's no stress from bills or, work or anything else that's going on. It's just you are 100% present in that moment. There's nothing exterior going on. It's just you against somebody else and you figuring out how to solve the problem.
Yeah.
And, I just love that. To me, martial arts is just, it is constantly evolving the brain, and, you're learning valuable things, and you're helping other people get better too.
Yeah.
I love that as well too. I've always been a coach. I'm on a little, it's been nice to not teach the last few years and just kind of focus on my own. I like to say my own little selfish journey, but I don't think I don't look at it as a negative connotation.
Oh, no.
I'm focusing on myself.
Yeah. I have a philosophy called selfish service.
Okay.
And the thought behind it is that, well, it's twofold. One is that we've got to work on ourselves so that we can work on others. We have to pour into ourselves so that we can pour into others. But then once we get to that point and we get to give, it also benefits us again. So it's like this, this cycle of the better I am, the better value I can add. And the more value I add, the better that makes me.
Yes.
And so I love it. And it's just kind of this positive feedback loop. So no, there's nothing wrong with being selfish from time to time. In fact, I think it's great. Yeah.
But it's still I'm still also selfless in a lot of things.
Of course.
I just want everybody else to get better, because when they get better, I get better. That's especially when it comes to martial arts.
Yeah, you're competing and pushing each other.
I always will help people, but after 7 months of training, I train 5 days a week. In December, I had just said to somebody a couple days before, and I'm like, man, this is the best I felt since I was back in New Orleans training. I feel like I'm at an even better level. And then 2 days later, I ruptured my tricep in jiu-jitsu class, a week before Christmas. And man, let me tell you, that was a huge blow, because I had just gotten all this, it felt like we had so much more stability.
Yeah.
And it wasn't unstable when we were on the road, but so anyways, I had to have surgery 3 days before Christmas. And
that's the injury I've been seeing you fight through.
That's the injury you've been seeing me fight through. So I had the surgery 3 days before Christmas. I committed to 365 days of workouts last year. The day after my surgery, that morning, I went to the gym and got after it. Before I was like, well, it's already messed up. Let's see what I can do with this. The next day, I put on my rucksack and went for an epic hike with a 40-pound weight in my pack, and that I should not have done that. I definitely paid for it. I was in a little bit of pain, but I still haven't missed a workout since. I've been going every day. So I took a week off of go to the gym. I just went on these epic hikes with my dog. And then I went back to the gym the next week and started jiu-jitsu again. So I went back and I was in a sling.
Yeah.
The first month I was just there helping people out, just kind of helping the instructors and just assisting.
Being part of it.
Yeah. And then I was like, all right, let me see what I can do. All right. So now I'm working technique with one sling. All right. Now I'm going to see what I can do, if I can use it for certain things. And then, but it's it's almost it has been such a rewarding experience, because it's gotten me out of my comfort zone.
Mm-hmm.
To where I'm doing things that I didn't do before. The thing about when you're under high duress, you always default to what you've done before.
Yeah, you don't rise to the occasion. You fall to your training.
You fall to the level of your training. But also you become when there's high stress, you also just fall back to your go-to techniques, rather than try to build your game. And you're always learning and stuff. But it has caused me to like completely change up my jiu-jitsu game, which is it's been a lot of fun. And also it's like that, like, I just love when things are hard.
Yeah.
Cause I'm like, I'm fighting people with one arm. Like, this is awesome. And I go back every day, and, you know, all the guys at the gym there, I think they're used to me now, but at the time they're like, what is this thing? Like, it just keeps showing up. We can't get rid of it.
Yeah. It's your superpower.
Yeah, it is. It is. So like now it's like, it's a badge of honor that I just never quit. You know, I'll never quit.
Is that along the same lines of, you mentioned earlier that you love rebuilding? There's kind of like there's no quit. I don't know. It's almost like you thrive in, I don't know if adversity is the right word, but like having a challenge to overcome, like that's rewarding to you to see that on the horizon. Is that a fair assumption?
Yeah, absolutely. No, I love having something that previously may have seemed unattainable, and have that as something that as the driving force for trying to accomplish it, and then crushing that, and then finding something else. Like, you know, it was different when we were traveling. It was like, I'm focusing on like rebuilding this business, spending time with my family. And now that we're here, it's like I'm pursuing jiu-jitsu again. And like, but it's been, I'm trying to figure out the right words, but this iteration of me being injured and still showing up, it's like, at the end of it, the crux of it is I'm just still trying to make myself proud every day. Every single day, I just want to, when I lay my head on my pillow, I want to know I did everything possible that day and didn't take any shortcuts, you know, didn't cut any corners, and made sure that I executed to the best of my ability. And so...
are you proud of yourself?
Yeah. I'm proud of myself every day. I wake up proud. I go to bed proud. And, you know, is there room for improvement? Absolutely. I think I've reached 1% of my potential.
Mm-hmm. Do you really think that 1%?
That's what I tell myself.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know, that way I keep myself humble. I'll never believe that I've done enough. It's always more.
Do you think that's a good thing, or do you think there's some negatives with that? I'm curious.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like working out the day of surgery, for example, or day after, you know, for example, I don't know. I wrestle with that from time to time, because I'm like-minded in that sense that if I haven't given it my all, it's not enough. You know, like, I can't leave anything on the field. I've got to, like, and sometimes I wonder if it wouldn't be a bad thing to sometimes, I don't know, back off a little bit or take a deep breath or whatever. But the flip side of that is that I'm loving it. I feel like I'm living a rich life because I'm leaving it all out on the field. Does that make me tired? Yes. Does it make, you know, I'm beat down, I'm worn out, I'm exhausted, I'm, you know, physically, but also mentally. Like, I mean, even today, I had back meetings all day today. It was a mental grind.
I saw you when I was pulling into the gym. I saw you walking up the street. And so I waited in the parking lot because I was going to say hello. And I was like, oh, that dude just kept going.
I'm just getting after it.
Yeah.
It's funny. But so I struggle with because there's moments when, like, I'm in the thick of it. And, you know, someone will say, like, you know, you don't do too much, or like, but my mom, for example, and my mom's the best, and she'll listen to this, but I was on a run with my wife the other day, and I'm trying to remember how it all happened, but we're in like a family group text, and, you know, my mom listened to my podcast with my wife, and at the end of it, we talk about running another 100-miler. So she texts the group and she goes, just listen to the podcast. You're going to run another ultra ? And I text back, 100-miler, not just an ultra, another 100-miler. And she texts back, you know, shouldn't we wait and see how the MRI goes first? And I was like, I love it. You know, that's my mom. That's why it's the best thing ever.
That's what moms are for.
But I'm just kind of curious, you know, from your perspective, in terms of if we're looking at measurement in terms of fulfillment or happiness or a life that you love, you know, however we define whatever success is or you know, these things, do you think that going all in is the path to that? Or do you think that that's kind of the what you found to work in terms of laying your head down at night and feeling proud?
Yeah, I mean, so I think that works for me, and I think it can be a detriment at sometimes, but I think what makes me operate like that is that I don't want to ever wonder about what could have been.
Same.
Ever.
Could you imagine, like, wondering if you would have done a little, what if I would have tried that thing, or what if I would have been a little more prepared, or what if I would have, read that book or done that workout.
Exactly. Yeah. That's what I think.
Removing the what ifs.
Removing the what ifs. Like, I don't have any what ifs in my life because I'm going to push through and do it. And obviously, there should be times probably when I shouldn't do things. But it also, I feel like it works for me because it keeps me on the straight and narrow.
Yeah.
Like I'm not.
And maybe that's
but I'm not under the illusion that I'm a recovered alcoholic addict. I'm still in recovery. And this is my therapy because I know that this monster, this beast is inside me in my head. And so I have to wear that out.
Yeah.
I have to wear it out just to the point of where all right, I've quelled the beast for today. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then tomorrow we'll start all over again. That's so, and it's not all people are wired like that, and I totally get that. So even with my coaching clients, I call my coaching human optimization coaching. I find, because, there's a great quote, the way you do one thing is the way you do everything.
Yeah.
So if you're not if you are not just going all in on yourself, and it starts with your health, right? Because if you're this vessel that we have, the one,
which by the way, it's the only one we get.
The only one you get. What do you do if your car, if you need a new car? What do you can get a new car, right? But if you need to do maintenance on your car, what do? You go get it done, right? You take your dog to the vet and they say your dog's overweight. What's the first thing you do?
Right.
I'm going to help that dog lose weight. It's just but we don't have that same insight
for ourselves,
which is crazy. But so that's essentially what I do with people. But I find what makes them tick internally, the way that their mind works, and figure out a way to draw that out and channel it in this avenue. And, essentially, I call it human optimization because it's all areas of life. How can you be the best for yourself so you can, meet that significant other? How can you do it so that you can get that promotion that you're going for? Or how can you do it so that you can get out of this rut and start a new chapter, right? So, but I think it all starts with, and it started with me, was fortifying the body.
Yeah.
That's, and that
I read a while back this idea that you cannot work on your body without working on your mind because it's part of your body. Mm-hmm. The two are connected. Mm-hmm. Yep. Because I tell people all the time, I run for my mind. But it's so true. I'm working on my body so that I can because of how it helps me work on my mind.
100%.
The other benefits happen to be benefits, looking good and feeling good and whatever. But the mind is part of our body. And working on our body works on our mind.
Yeah, sharpen the body, sharpen the mind.
Yeah.
It's and it's the crazy thing is that so many people are so successful in multiple areas of their life. So they already have that intangible factor. If you just took a sliver of that dedication that you have to these things that have brought you success and just channel it into this, it's not only does that, not only do you get stronger, you feel better, you're healthier, you live longer, but it makes everything else get better.
Yeah.
You're better at everything else you do. Right. So, and this is why you see me keep showing up in a sling. This is why we don't take days off. This is why you ran an ultra, a 100-mile race. This is because we know that this is constantly sharpening the sword.
It's bigger than that.
Yeah. It's way bigger than that. It's way bigger than that. I can't imagine a life I can't imagine not having this in my life and how I even operated back then.
Yeah.
It's I just had such an idle mind. And, that's when things stray. That's when things get off path. But this is I'm on a 1-lane highway and there's no other traffic. There's no other traffic. I'm just going forward. And I'm not looking behind me. I'm just looking forward and I'm just going to keep going.
Right.
Until the wheels fall off. Literally and figuratively.
Yeah, literally.
So.
Until you literally physically can't keep going.
That's it. Somebody asked me the other day.
But of course, an object in motion stays in motion.
Yeah.
There's some validity to that.
For sure.
I think that.
Momentum.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. That's actually a big part of I wake up in the morning thinking I'm just got to build more momentum.
Yep.
Just add more fuel to the fire.
Stack it a little.
Just stack it a little. Somebody asked me the other day that so I'm going to be 46 this year. They're like, "Oh, you're getting old." I was like, "No, I'm not."
Don't feel it.
I was like, the day you decide that you're old is the day that your life is just never going to be the same.
Yeah.
You know, so like I'm going to keep going. Like the day that I can't manhandle people half my age, maybe then I'll think I'm getting older.
Starting to age just
yeah,
slightly.
I'm starting to age just slightly, but no, it's just it's a state of mind. Like it's all the self-talk. It's what you tell yourself. It's what you not only just say to yourself, but it's also like what you put into action.
Yeah.
You know, you just like, you know, and if you are constantly focusing on like the daily pursuit of excellence, the relentless pursuit of excellence, you know, like age is insignificant, right? Your situation is insignificant.
Yeah.
You know, it's because you can control that. There are very few things in life that we can control.
Yeah.
And you can control your input and your output. And that's really all I focus on controlling.
It's crazy. You almost boil it down to make it that simple, and
That's it. And that's what I tell my clients all the time. Like, that's it. You are the cause and the solution to all of your problems.
You're the cause and the solution to all of your problems.
That's it. We got to figure out who actually said that.
I'm going to just quote you on it. Yeah.
Just write Wayne Gretzky at the bottom.
Yeah, exactly.
Cross it out.
Yeah.
Put Vin Chary.
Vin, thank you so much. Just an amazing conversation. So many takeaways. And I want to thank you obviously for being here. I know how valuable your time is and how much you prioritize your energy and all of that. So first of all, I want to thank you for that.
I really appreciate it.
But more importantly, I want to thank you for living the life that you're living and for being vulnerable, for being authentic, for leaving it all on the line and leaving it all on the field and crossing these gaps and rebuilding over and over and over again and overcoming adversity, all of these things that you've done, because it gives other people hope and it gives other people, everybody gets to see that and know that they can too. And the fact that you're helping others through your coaching, but I think you're helping most people by the life that you're living, which is just incredible. And so I have a gift for you.
Okay.
It's one of my Inspire by Example shirts. And it's because you are inspiring just by your example.
I love
and
that.
I want to thank you for it. The world needs more people like you. And so thank you for living the life that you're living. And thanks for sharing a little bit of the wisdom with me today. I really appreciate it.
Man, that means the world to me. You know, I'm so grateful that I got to come on here, and you know, I don't like to talk about myself, but you know, I enjoyed. That takes a backseat to being able to share my story to help inspire others.
Yeah,
you know, so I really like. I mean, I'm just honored to be here, and this was so great. You know, obviously we're going to be hanging out at the gym, pushing each other. Now that we know a little bit more about each other,
yeah,
it's going to get pretty
trouble.
crazy over there. Yeah, but man, I think what you're doing is amazing. I love the just the name alone. You know, that almost like is a microcosm of like what name of the podcast is. That's a microcosm of my life. Like I am. And for you to be able to have me on here and to acknowledge that means the world to me. And you know, I love seeing that in you too. Like we were just like tractor beams.
Yeah.
I like that guy.
Well, yeah, like-minded, you know, attracting other people, you know, anyway, thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.
I appreciate it.
Appreciate you.